I have returned, Rebecca. Where is my brood?
Welcome back, my lord. I had them go into hiding until you returned. With your near-death experience at the hand of Uriel and a threat showing up to the library, I deemed it the best course of action.
Threat? What? Was it one of my brothers? Or was it an angel? Because if it was that cherub outside, I already ripped it to pieces, and to be honest, you probably could have taken care of him yourself with the help of Xander.
Neither, actually. It was a servant of one of the elder gods. He got into an altercation with the archbishop, and then he gave me this letter and said to make sure that you got it. None of the other broodlings were hurt, but I figured it would be best to lay low in case anyone else had any ideas of attacking in your absence.
Very well done. This is why you're my head librarian. Do me a favor.
Rally Xander and the others. Tonight, we will have the feast. I will see what this letter's all about and join you momentarily. And of course.
Nyarlathotep. The crawling chaos. I am the last, and I will tell the audient void. I do not recall distinctly when it began, but it was months ago. The general tension was horrible. To a season of political and social upheaval was added a strange and brooding apprehension of hideous physical danger. A danger widespread and all-embracing. Such a danger as may be imagined only in the most terrible phantasms of the night. I recall that the people went about with pale and worried faces, and whispered warnings and prophecies which no one dared consciously repeat or acknowledge to himself that he had heard. A sense of monstrous guilt was upon the land, and out of the abyss, between the stars, swept chill currents that made men shiver in dark and lonely places. There was a demoniac alteration of the sequences of the seasons. The autumn heat lingered fearsomely, and everyone felt that the world, and perhaps the universe, had passed from the control of known gods or forces to that of gods or forces which were unknown. And it was then that Nyarlathotep came out of Egypt. Who he was, none could tell, but he was one of the old native blood, and he looked like a pharaoh. The Felian knelt when they saw him, yet could not say why. He said that he had risen out of the blackness of 27 centuries, and that he had heard messages from places not on this planet. Into the lands of civilization came Nyarlathotep, swarthy, slender, and sinister, always buying strange instruments of glass and metal, and combining them into instruments yet stranger. He spoke much of the sciences, of electricity and psychology, and gave exhibitions of power which sent his specters away speechless, yet which swelled his fame to exceeding magnitude. Men advised one another to see Nyarlathotep and shuddered, and where Nyarlathotep went, rest vanished, for the small hours were rent with the screams of nightmares. Never before had the screams of nightmares been such a public problem. And it was now that the wise men almost wished that they could forbid sleep in the small hours, that the shrieks of cities might less horribly disturb the pale and pitying moon as it glimmered on green waters, gliding under bridges and old strepels crumbling against a sickly sky. I remember when Nyarlathotep came to my city, the great, the old, the terrible city of innumerable crimes. My friend had told me of him, and of the impelling fascination and allurement with his revelations, and I burned with an eagerness to explore his uttermost mysteries. My friend said that they were horrible and impressive beyond my most fevered imaginations, and that what was thrown on a screen in the darkened room prophesied things that none but Nyarlathotep dared to prophesy, and that in the sputter of his sparks there was taken from men which had never been taken before, yet which shone only in the eyes. And I heard it hinted abroad that those who knew Nyarlathotep looked on sights which others saw not. I was in the hot autumn, and I went through the night with the restless crowds to see Nyarlathotep. Through the stifling night and up on the endless stairs into the choking room, and shadowed on a screen, I saw hooded forms amidst ruins and yellow evil faces peering from fallen monuments. And I saw the world battling against blackness, against the waves of destruction from ultimate space, whirling and churning, struggling around, dimming and cooling sun. Then the sparks played amazingly around the heads of the specters, and hair stood up on end, while shadows more grotesque than I could tell came out and squatted on the heads. And when I, who was colder and more scientific than the rest, mumbled a trembling protest about imposture and static electricity, Nyarlathotep drove us all out, down the dizzy stairs and into the damp, hot, deserted midnight streets. I screamed aloud that I was not afraid, that I never could be afraid, and others screamed with me for solace. We swore to one another
that the city was exactly the same, and still alive. When the electric lights began to fade, we cursed the company over and over again, and laughed at the queer faces that we made. But I believe that we felt something coming down from the greenish moon, for when we began to depend on its light, we drifted into curious and involuntary formations, and seemed to know our destinations, though we dared not think of them. Once we looked at the pavement and found the blocks loose and displaced by grass, with a scarce line of rusted metal to show where the tramways had run. And again we saw a tramcar, lone and windowless, dilapidated and almost on its side. When we gazed around the horizon, we could not find the third tower by the river, and noticed that the silhouette of the second tower was ragged at the top. And then we split up into narrow columns, each of which seemed drawn in a different direction. One disappeared in a narrow alley to the left, leaving only the echo of a shocking moan. Another flailed down a weed-choked subway entrance, howling with the laughter that was mad. My own column was sucked towards the open country, and presently felt a chill, which was not of the autumn heat. For as we stalked down the dark moor, we beheld around us the hellish moon glitter of evil snows, trackless, inexplicable snows, swept asunder in one direction only, where lay a gulf, all blacker for its glittering walls. The column seemed very thin indeed, as it plodded dreamily into the gulf. I lingered behind it, for the black rift of the green litten snow was frightful, and I thought that I heard the reverberations of a disquieting wail as my companions vanished, but my power to linger was slight. As if beckoned by those who had gone before, I half floated between the titanic snowdrifts, quivering and afraid, into the slightest vortex of the unimaginable. Screaming, sentient, dumbly delirious, only the gods that were can tell. A sickened, sensitive shadow writhing in hands that were not hands, and whirled blindly past ghastly midnights of rotting creation, corpses of dead worlds with sores that were cities, carnal winds that brush the pallid stars and make them flicker low. Beyond the world's vague ghosts of monstrous things, half-seen columns of unsanctified temples that rest on nameless rocks beneath space and reached up to a dizzy vacuum above the spears of light and darkness. And though this revolting graveyard of the universe, the muffled, maddening beats of drums and thin, monotonous whine of blasphemous flutes from inconceivable, unintelligible chambers beyond time, the detestable pounding and piping were a Shinto dance slowly, awkwardly, and absurdly, the gigantic to numerous ultimate gods, the blind, the voiceless, mindless gargoyles, whose soul is Nyarlathotep. I doubt Nyarlathotep had anything to do with me getting this. Just another ramblings of a madman, struck when he's seen the face of an elder god. Although, it makes an interesting additive to my collection. You know, I've never had the pleasure of meeting Nyarli, but if what they say about him is true, then... Oh. So she's finally here, then. I guess our game of cat and mouse comes to a close.
I'm surprised you didn't even bother to hide this time. You must have realized enough is enough. Come on. You know I'm here.
Oh, don't you have better things to be doing? I refuse to believe that I should be your biggest concern right now.
What? You wiped a town out of existence, not to mention that beast that you dropped off in the Appalachians a few days ago, and those drugs you cooked up. I can't even believe I have to say any of this.
Well, in my defense, I never would have taken that impromptu trip to Fulton had you not ambushed me in Salem with that little band of angelic brown-nosers. So that's just as much your fault as it is...
Oh, don't you dare put that on me. You were one of those brown-nosers not too long ago. You know, you always put the blame on others. You don't even feel shame, do you? The way you ran from your execution in Salem to lick your wounds, killed thousands while doing so. I played no part in it. You have no right.
So you'd punish an injured and starving wolf for feasting on one of the shepherd's precious lambs to regain its strength? Fulton was no different.
You are playing a dangerous game invoking his title like that. And your callousness for human life never ceases to amaze me.
Well, it's not like I hate them or anything. I am no Lucifer. I simply recognize the gap between them and me. It's quite the large one.
So, that gives you the right to use them like lab rats and kill them for your amusement?
Honestly, I don't understand why you all hold them in such high regards. And besides, outside of 2 instances, I've done little more than observe and give them things to alter their minds to the truest extent. All in all, I'd say that I'm pretty tame compared to what some of my other demon brethren have been up to. Which leads me back to the question, why are you so dead set in seeing me fall this Hallows Eve? Well, if I didn't know any better, I would say that this has to do with the fall still, and who I was before.
No, this isn't about the fall. You can't keep doing this to... You can't do this again. I remember who you were before, and I ask you to do the same for me. You were always one to test my patience, and in a way, you haven't changed at all. You never let anything be easy. We've done this dance so many times. Have you heard enough?
And here I thought archangels weren't ones for sentimentality. You truly are full of surprises. But busting me this day won't be one of them. You've run yourself ragged hunting me down since Salem, and your wounds from that battle have yet to heal. It even looks like my precious beast gave you quite the trouble. Well, you're in no shape to fight me, dear.
Okay, don't sound too proud of yourself. That's not even your job. Wounded or not, I will set things right. You must fall. No, you will fall by my hand alone. You have to know you're out of options. You've grown weaker, you look weaker. You'd be foolish to keep fighting.
You know, the amount of people in Fulton was truly a much larger amount than I thought. The amount of fear, confusion, and despair mixed in with all that meat as they died was a surplus. I didn't just heal, I was supercharged. To put this in terms that you can understand, if we were to fight right now, I would crush you. I wouldn't hesitate to rip the wings from your back and sever your connection to the heavens forever.
Oh, rip my wings? Did you know you have a bluff? You always have. We both know how this is supposed to end. Doesn't it get so tiring to so desperately cling to life like this?
Well, I am not the father of lies, dear. What I said isn't hyperbole or bravado. It is a declaration of the future should you continue to walk this path. But what you say is true. I know I walk a doomed path, and the day that I do fall, I pray that it is you who fells me. Michael or Gabriel would be no fun. Next year, try again. Maybe by then those wounds of yours will have healed up. I'm nearly done here anyway.
My restraint is not a victory for you, Subab. Just know the clock is ticking, and when our paths cross again, come hell or high water, I'll make sure we end this.
Yes. It can only ever end one way.
I am sorry, you know? I truly am.
And so am I. And there she goes. Almost forgot what she was like. It's been a while. How can I invoke his title? Uriel, you ask the silliest questions. It's not as though he's been around. Even you angels haven't seen our precious creator in eons. I'm quite sure that he has abandoned us completely.
The brood has been readied, and all preparations have already been made. We may begin the feast as soon as you are ready, my lord.
Good. I'm glad that even given any hiccups this month, all things went according to plan. Well done on the setup behind the scenes. That work is simply too drab for me. That is why I'm always saying the brood must take care of its own.
Speaking of which, actually, I looked a little more into that whole case with the new broodlings that betrayed you for the angels. I managed to sniff out the others. There were 5 in total. The one that you already took care of. 2 of them got a bit aggressive when caught, and I unfortunately had to put them down. But the last 2 surrendered quietly, and I had them prepared for the feast. So you can deal with them however you see personally.
You'd never cease to amaze me. This is why I leave you in charge when I'm not around.
I only do the job that you assign me.
And to think, yesterday you were some knowledge-obsessed brat, begging me to give you more info about the universe and secrets beyond. Although that was well over 200 years ago at this point. Look at where your gluttony has gotten you. Now come along. I think it's time that we enjoyed the feast.